that option out now. So everyone should just get a notice that we're about to record the talk and they have to consent. Um, so before we start the talk, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jacqueline from Computer Science Society. Thank you for also helping coordinate finding more of an audience and promoting it to CSS as well as anyone else from the CSS committee that might be here. I can see Jacob as well, you're here. Nice to meet you. Um, Also, thanks to everyone in Startup Society who helped to organize the event. Um, and yeah, if you're ready to start, Sam, you can just get cracking with the talk.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I was going to let you kind of perhaps ask questions on things because didn't have slides as such, but
All right, no worries. I can ask them some prompt questions if you want.
yeah. Also, it's cool that like computer science people are here as well because I obviously had to teach myself coding to then start this business and some of the other things that I've done. And it's definitely, if I was going back to uni, that's probably what I would have done instead of biology.
How about we start with that then? So just give us an overview of what you did at university, both academic and I guess in the startup world.
So at uni, well, I joined doing civil engineering and got really bored about analyzing concrete. And like I was really good at maths and physics as a kid, but kind of had a really fun gap year where I did lots of stuff and forgotten how to do like differential equations and that stuff, and got there and was like, damn. And like I managed to like win a few random competitions on math stuff where it's just like kind of like left field, like really weird stuff that you hadn't ever had to like learn about before, which was really motivating for the fact that I'm not stupid, but also didn't help me beat people that, like the actual stuff we needed to know. So anyway, I changed to biology because I don't know, it just sounded interesting and learned about the world, evolution, science and things, and what was going wrong with it. And it's kind of a bit like business in terms of like finding your niche, competing to survive in these things. So a lot of transferable knowledge, I guess. And I got really frustrated by like all the environment things that were going on, just like all the research and talking about it and not actually doing anything to solve problems. And by the time I was like 20 and was like fed up of hearing about problems with the world and not doing anything. So I decided to write a bunch of different business plans, and a lot of them like slightly too ambitious. Like sort of 9 years ago, kind of had like a business plan for basically Tesla, and didn't know how I'd ever start that, and ended up like reducing my ambitions to something I could feasibly do whilst at uni, which was like cycling around delivering stuff. So I ended up starting like a delivery logistics company using bicycles. And this was before Deliveroo or anything. So we did a lot of like normal stuff during the day and started doing things for like DHL, like last mile deliveries and stuff between lots of companies. Which I mean, that was a big jump between idea, oh, and I'm delivering lots of stuff. So maybe I should like unpack that a bit. I sent in business plans to like a uni society competition, and I got like a grand to start it up over summer, and that was like, oh, I actually have to do this now. So that was my summer holiday of starting the idea, and I just sort of basically wrote up a business plan, did a bunch of research, like calling organizations and things, and worked out that I could like put some adverts on the bikes and things. I managed to get a cider company to pay for like $5 worth of advertising up front when I had like no idea and well, no actual like business happening. And that like actually funded me to sort of then get some equipment and start doing the things that I wanted to do, which solved the how to start the idea problem. But that was kind of interesting because I would never have thought of myself as a salesman back then. So just in case you misunderstood, well, just because it was a bit of a big jump to go from like no business to a business. So that's kind of how the business happened. And it wasn't exactly like an easy process, but turns out like anyone can do it. But yeah, anyway, the business kind of actually happened. And by second year, I was running a business, and I almost failed my second year because I was just taking logistics calls and things, and like I had no tech involved. It was like me and a phone, and me phoning my people that worked for me what to do and where to go and stuff, and was really not organized and quite terrible. And yeah, I started doing delivery style things before delivery existed, and that kind of like exploded, which is awesome. Apart from the fact that like I couldn't actually handle it, and I had to stop it because I couldn't deal with it, and was like, yeah. So that was a bit disappointing, really. Because if I had a bit more knowledge about how to raise money in these things and how to run a business, I would have probably raised some money and employed some people to like build the code and like turn it into an app, and maybe I would have started Deliveroo. But instead I just had to shut it down and move on with my life and just do the parts of the business that I could handle. And yeah, that was a bit sad, but by third year I got a business partner who like did all like the just day-to-day logistics of things, which was cool, and I didn't have to worry about that anymore. I just gave him 50% of the business because like I just wasn't going to have a business if I didn't do that. And that seemed like a very sensible idea at the time because it allowed me to like concentrate on my studies and just do like the sales part of the business and still grow it, which is great. But then 2 years later, after uni, I kind of wanted to get back to like my some of the bigger ambitions of like doing stuff. But then he had 50% of the company and didn't want to grow it any further than we got it to, and so I was a bit stuck and kind of got a bit bored of running the business because I was like, if I'm not doing something like really hard and ambitious, it was a bit like, well, I'm just running a company for a lifestyle. It seems a bit pointless. I'm like 23. Why can't I do something cool? And yeah, I kind of ignored it and probably should have tried to sell it then, but then didn't, just did other stuff for like a year. Company went from having like 40 grand in the bank to about like 5 grand in the bank because I wasn't looking. And somehow I managed to convince someone to actually then buy it off me, like my shares at the end of that. But like, I basically didn't make any money when I could have made like quite a bit of money a year ahead. But I learned stuff and didn't actually fail in a business.
That's really interesting. So, like going at back to the start when you said you had the 1 grand that you'd won from a competition at university,
yeah,
and you'd managed to convince a cider company to give you a couple more. Was it just you on your own doing deliveries at that point, or had you
yeah, it was
already
just me.
hired people?
Yeah,
Wow.
so I managed to convince a few students to like to sort of volunteer like part time with the promise that they would then get a job at the when it actually sort of did stuff. So some people just kind of like helped me deal with like some equipment stuff and put some ideas together, but like didn't do a lot of things. It was very much just me. And like I would have definitely have recommended like actually starting with a business partner that's sort of interested in the same idea, or like to even apply with someone. If yeah, if you're going to any kind of hackathons or those kind of things, just pick up on people that you like working with and just try doing stuff together. It's kind of, it's nice being able to make your own decisions, but it's kind of super crap being a solo founder, and I wouldn't really recommend it.
And what were the interactions with, I guess, your customers? So that would be restaurants and stuff like at the start, because I think with a lot of business ideas, you can kind of come across as a bit crazy when you try to explain them to other people. I guess having
Yeah,
the backing of
100%.
having won the competition probably gave you bit more of like a base to explain to your customers and restaurants of what you're trying to do, right? But how was that initially? Did restaurants initially start to say like, no, there's no way we're getting you to deliver our food? Or
Yeah, so it was a bit, as in like I'd go and talk to people and like it would be sort of, some people would be kind of crazy, what you're doing, and then but I also put a website up and I get people just call me being like, oh, can I book this? And I'm like, what? Yes. And I'm like, do you not want to check that like I know what the fuck I'm doing? And they're like, no, can I tomorrow? Like, okay, yeah, someone will be there, sure, that's a thing. And like, yeah, if you actually sort of have something to sell straight away, it's not so bad. So like, I mean, I didn't need to take further funding because everything I did, it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to pay a guy to deliver this much an hour, so I'm just going to charge someone this much more to do that delivery. And I didn't have to like think too much about business model or so like tech side of things where you don't sell anything for like years, which is like my current problem. Didn't have to worry about so much. So it was just like a very much, okay, if someone wants a thing, they can just buy the thing and I'm not going to lose any money, which is kind of nice. But it was a bit sort of weird that people, that some people just take you like so seriously straight away, and other people would just be like, what the fuck are you doing? You're a nutter. And yeah, it was kind of odd. Certainly trying to get people to kind of do the sponsoring of things when you're just trying to sell them a complete idea, around having advertisements on like these bikes that didn't even exist was a bit harder. And just, I don't know, somehow I got hold of one person that just was like really fun on the phone to chat to, and he was like, okay, whatever, we've got some people in Bristol, we're trying to do a big thing for students around there, so why not? So yeah, right.
You were saying that like automation and tech would have really helped you out. Did that click with you quite far after, like for example, once you've sold you'd sold the
Yeah,
business.
yeah, I think it became much more apparent as in like I kind of knew, like I had some friends in computer science that was like nudging me like, oh, this would be great and stuff. And like I also when I first started, I kind of written like the specifications for Uber as an app and hadn't got anyone to build that for me either, which was annoying. Um and and then like a few years later, like Uber came out, I was like, crap, I could have been there. It's just like when you start sort of having ideas and then seeing them come to be because someone's got the tech, you're like, yeah, I really should have tech behind these things. And because it was sort of a bit of a different time back then. Like, I don't think I even had a smartphone when I first started uni. Like, I just did a gap year where I drove across the states without even a sat nav or anything. I just had a compass. And obviously now, like, no one drives anywhere without a sat nav or anything because it's on your phone. So yeah, it was still very much like the starting of those things. Whereas now it's just kind of blatantly obvious. And I think partly because I was just curious and like it just sort of became apparent that like the world's going more tech, that like I should just understand that stuff, and which certainly helps us understand like the capabilities of what I can do with code and things besides just having ideas, and just being able to talk with developers and stuff was super handy. So I mean, don't think everyone should learn to code, but it certainly helps just learn at least some of the basics because you just don't like
Yeah.
waste so much time trying to talk
And
about.
I reckon at the time, what year did you, out of interest, did you start and finish uni?
Started 2010, finished 2013.
Yeah. So at the time, for example, now if you look at Uber, Delivery, those
Yeah.
kind of apps, that's very much a business model, a disruptive business model where tech's like at the heart of it. And I guess at that time it was kind of being pioneered and there weren't many
Yeah, like
examples.
sort of
Like,
Just Eat, which is sort of growing, like Uber Eats, Deliveroo and stuff didn't exist. Yeah, Uber was literally just being started at the time. Yeah, it's kind of
yeah.
interesting.
So I can see how it could have been harder to connect the dots. So we got like the base story of university, and I guess it seemed that you learned just as much about business as you did about biology
Yeah,
as
yeah, it was
well.
nice to kind of have like a dual degree almost. And then afterwards, there was like a business incubator thing at the uni, which I'd sort of been in the whole time. And then they had like one entrepreneur in residence, so basically ran the incubator for a year. So I did that and got to like coach all the students and sort of run lots of startup events and things. So that was really, really handy, and probably made a lot more better friends whilst I was doing that. Just because I guess I wasn't so embedded in my actual degree as such to really be spending time with those people. Whereas talking to all the entrepreneurs and like getting involved with people that wanted to change the world was like more my thing. So it's really nice to be like helping people and do stuff. So I think I've got like one friend that I still talk to a lot from uni that I actually studied with, and everyone else is all from like being entrepreneurial.
That's really cool. And that was the year after you'd finished your degree.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, there's a few that I've made friends as whilst I was being an entrepreneur during at uni, but then like afterwards, I sort of just met a lot more people whilst I was doing
Okay.
it. I had more time for it.
And then in terms of Syncify and what you're doing currently now, how did that all get started? And what's the journey behind that?
So I mean, the idea was actually something I had like in my dorm room whilst I was working on my first business, because I was like, I'm not spending any time with any of my friends because I'm just working so hard, and was super into music and stuff back then, and was listening to things. Just felt like quite lonely. My friends would always go out and stuff, and it's like, um, yeah, I just wish I could be sort of listening to music with people at the same time, or like kind of if you're like a house party, being able to like all like listen to the same thing and sort of have like sound clashes and stuff on stuff. And so I kind of had this like music audio sharing app idea, and didn't really do anything about it because I was busy. But then like 3 years ago when I started my podcast, I got like really into like the whole podcasting thing, and started just sort of feeling it like it was a bit stupid that I spent so much time listening to podcasts or audiobooks and just being like alone the whole time and not really talking about it with anyone. And I listened to this one book with a friend whilst we were traveling together, and he was doing he was like an AI researcher, and we listened to like Super Intelligence, which is all about AI. And like, so I listened to the chapter, and each chapter would be like interesting and kind of blow my mind a little bit. And then like I talk with him, and he'd just have like 10 more, like it would just be so much better. Like I'd learn way more from like my conversation with him than I would from the actual book, but like needed the book to get that started. It was just like, wait, there's so much more value in like listening to things with your friends than there is just listening to things by yourself. It just seems like really stupid. So ever since then, I've just been like super annoyed anytime I listen to a podcast by myself, because it's just kind of like a waste of time. Like you listen and then you probably forget most of it because you do nothing with the information, and like, yeah. So it's just been kind of like eating at me since then. and how like useless it is as a process. And I think I probably could have started it a few years ago, to be fair, because I still had like some experience, but like it's this year kind of got to the point where like I've definitely got like a lot more experience in podcasting, and like my dev skills got to the point where I could actually start building it myself. And the podcast space has just sort of been like, so I have like 10 different ideas that I've been sitting on for like the right time, and it was like, okay, this is definitely the right time. Like now, like a few other people have tried to build similar ideas in like the past 10 years that have all died, but it was like maybe a bit too early. Whereas now it's kind of like the audio space is just evolving super fast, and it's growing really fast, and like there's definitely just needs to be something different. And like the whole AirPods thing is just like the speed of people are getting is more involved in podcasting is huge, and like the whole social media is starting to become like people are realizing it's a bit shit, and you're not really like building your relationships at all. Like relationships are based on like sharing experiences and doing stuff together, like, you know, doing your course together, coming to these events and like building a business together. That's like sharing experiences. That's like builds your relationship. Just like posting about stuff on social media about yourself is like, you don't have more friends by doing that. Like you have people like followers, they're not friends. Whereas if
And
you're
I
in
feel like a bit part of Syncify is kind of stopping that isolation boundary that people might have between each other. And you're saying that you're basing kind of what you're doing right now on timing, right? And I think with lockdown, the timing is really good because currently people are so isolated in some parts of the world. So Syncify would be really great to let people have that bond, much more than other social medias, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so it's allows you to actually do the same thing as someone else together, and then be able to talk about like the shared experiences, feel a bit like closer, and like you understand what's going on in people's brains a bit more. And people, as in, if you think about social media, there's a nice quote of like every social media post is like a rehash of the same statement, like someone please pay attention to me. Whereas if you think of like Syncify, where you're doing stuff together, you're just naturally paying attention to other people anyway. You're not like seeking it, you're giving it. And so like, let's say my business partner tags me in a podcast saying like, oh, this is really good. When I listen to it, the whole time I'm thinking about like what I can then say to him afterwards about the podcast, rather than like about myself. It's like ideas that I'm having about like the content that we're listening to. And so it's just like, it's a much more natural way to be friends, but like in like a low friction way, because it's just like it's in your own time anyway. It doesn't take any of your time. It's just sort of natural to go and do. Whereas like trying to be on a Zoom call every day just to like chat is like, it's a lot of effort. You have to be in the same place at the same time. Whereas like whenever I feel like listening to a podcast, that's when I listen to the podcast. It doesn't matter. I don't need to schedule it with anyone. I just do it. And if it happens that I can be listening to things that my friends just listen to, or like it does happen to be at the same time, then like that's like super cool and easy for me to like get involved in. So that's sort of, anyway, the whole idea of the business.
Yeah. So I understand that you guys were part of the Techstars Accelerator as well. How did that come about, and how was the Techstars experience? How did you grow from? Were you just an idea at the start, and what kind of were you at the end?
Yeah, so getting into Techstars, they have like their assessment matrix is team, idea, traction, team of what they look for in a business. And so you basically, it really helps if you have some form of knowledge in the industry or like expertise to show why you're cool, or that you somehow already know the people on Techstars in that thing, that they know that you're like validated for that. So I actually interviewed the MD of Techstars London 3 years ago on my podcast, and I've since like kept in touch with him with different ideas, and like I've interviewed a lot of other Techstars founders through him. So that was super helpful. And despite like anything you can do to grow your network and stuff, is basically just always do that. So if you do want to start a podcast, basically just do it as an excuse to talk to people and get to know people, would be my advice there. And so anything you can do that sort of helps your profile in some way will be super useful for trying to get onto accelerators. Then in terms of what we actually did otherwise, like traction wise, we just spoke to like 100 users to sort of prove that we had like an actual idea, that we understood the customer, and that we knew that they had like a problem that needed solving, that they were like, they wanted it. And like we did that, and like the survey results were really good. We had people kind of like constantly messaging me being like, when's the app already? I really need this. So that was like just really useful validation to go and show to people that like there's an idea that is worth funding. And obviously if you've already started a business, or you can allude to like having been in like Entrepreneur Society and that this is something that you've always wanted to do, it just shows that you're probably going to be worthy of getting funding and such, because there's basically sort of three really good questions to answer when you're trying to start a business, which is, are there people that you care about with a problem that you maybe want to try and fix? And if you really care about them, like that shows that you understand what's going on. And then, do you have any skills or knowledge that other people don't, that means that you're more relevant for solving their problems? And then like third is like, do you understand what it means to start a business and how much work it is? And do you really want to go and do that? Are you like an entrepreneur founder that just gets eaten up when you're not solving problems? Or is it like you just want to be rich? Because if you just want to be rich, you're doing the wrong thing. So if you can answer all those like positively, then you kind of have a better chance of getting into Techstars or convincing someone to give you money just at the first stage. So there's that. And then I got onto Techstars, and it's a bit different this year because of COVID. So normally we have this thing called demo day at the end, where there's like hundreds of investors, and you do this like really cool like stage theatrical stuff where you talk about how amazing your business is and all the stuff you've done. And then afterwards they basically line up to give you their cards, and like you have all these VC meetings. And that didn't happen. We had it online, but no one really attended, and it was a bit crap. But the other few months were great. We met like 100 mentors in the first month, so like CTO of Disney, IKEA, CTO of Candy Crush. So just some really cool people, and who just give you lots of advice from like their years of running businesses and doing stuff. And yeah, it's like it's a little bit like, because you pitch like 100 people in like a few weeks, you're just constantly getting sort of the same questions come up, and you just develop your pitch so much better as you go through it, and you get like all your ideas shot down and like other ideas coming at you, and it's just sort of like chaos in your brain. But like after a while you have to take a week off and then you like work out what's going on with your life. So that was super useful. And then just like the 100K that they give you meant that we've actually been able to employ people, and just the validation has been huge. Because like, I mean, I was building it myself and we had some coders, but it was just being super slow. But I was able to acquire a different company, which was basically just a guy that was like a coder who'd been building like a very similar app. But because we were on Techstars, it just showed that we were like going somewhere, and so he joined us because of that. Whereas we've been a bit more difficult without that. So it's certainly just very helpful. And now that we're trying to raise money from angels and VCs and stuff, it sort of just makes the conversation a bit easier, because you've already been validated by Techstars, and Techstars companies traditionally do quite well. So it's just sort of de-risk things a bit. But in terms of the space that we're in, we're basically in the riskiest space that exists, in terms of like, we're a social media company. I mean, how many social media companies can you think of? Not many. And like thousands of people try them every year and they all fail, apart from like the one or two that you've heard of. So still we have some problems to go through. So we'll see.
It's definitely quite bold. So would you
Yeah.
say that the biggest benefit of Techstars really was just the massive exposure to people and ideas, I guess, that you got? So you're saying you're pitching to so many CTOs, etc., from different companies, and all the ideas you got back. Was that like the main advantage you say of Techstars?
It's a bit of everything. Yes, that's huge. Also, I think the time pressure. So, I mean, if you could bottle urgency, you'd be a billionaire, is a quote from someone that was on my podcast once. And it's kind of true, because like in the 3 months leading up to Techstars, like I did quite a bit of stuff, but in the 3 months on Techstars, it was just like crap, just doing stuff all the time, and everything was always urgent. And yeah, it just sort of makes sure that you're always like doing things as quickly as possible, because time like doesn't slow down at all. It's just sort of how much you fit into it. I mean, yeah, I should probably be getting slightly more sleep than I have been, but otherwise it's been great in terms of just making you really stick to like deadlines and goals, and just having like a big looming demo day deadline. It's just like trying to get as much stuff sorted as quickly as possible. So I think like the urgency that it gives you, like it's called an accelerator because it does just make you move faster. So
Yeah.
probably like that, which is a combination of all the different things that they have going on, but that's like the main value probably.
Okay, that's interesting. It's good to hear that it lived up to the name of literally being an accelerator.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
we've got a question in chat from Alex, who says, if or at all did you, how often did you get the imposter syndrome, and if so, how did you manage that?
Yeah, regularly. Um, I mean, I do like doing things that I'm bad at, so I'm not too worried. Like, I get a bit weird if I'm not in the deep end of something, and so I kind of like embrace the whole failure side of things. Um, but yeah, I do get a bit scared by stuff sometimes, and like you know, anyone that's starting a business or doing anything, you're just making stuff up the entire time. So it is a bit surreal that like I have a bunch of employees that log on to Zoom every morning at 9 a.m. and basically tell me about the things that they're trying to do to help my ideas happen. And they look to me to like tell them what else to do. And I'm like, I've got no clue because I'm just making stuff up. Maybe we'll do this today. Like, I don't know. And it is a bit surreal in that sense. And like, I guess then I've got like the same personality matrix apparently as Elon Musk, and like I'm certainly into like the really big ideas and like wanting to change the world, but I'm like an introvert who naturally prefers like time to himself and isn't the best at like delegating or explaining what's going on in his head because there's too many different complicated things going on, so it's just easier for me to deal with it. So like trying to build a company where I have all these people doing things is quite hard, and my business partner is great at just being like a natural leader. Like he's like a full-on like team captain, really funny, everyone loves him instantly, that sort of person. Whereas I'm kind of like the person that sits in the corner until something's going wrong, and then like, actually I've got like 10 different ideas to solve this problem, by the way, guys, so you should probably listen to me. But like people wouldn't know to listen to me unless like there's something going wrong. So I don't sort of feel like I'm naturally leading so much. So sometimes I'm a bit like, am I even running this business if he's doing the stuff all the time? And then like occasionally things come up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I'm the CEO, because I'm the person that has all the ideas. But it is a bit like sometimes worrying, I guess. And certainly trying to raise money is definitely a bit of a like, yeah, just give me £500,000. Sure, I know what I'm doing with this. That's I'm definitely going to be responsible and spend as well and like execute on all of the things I've just written down that I just made up. That's a bit weird. Um, and yeah, obviously just talking to lots of people about why you're doing it and having like validation of this is the thing to do really helps on that side
Yeah.
of it. And certainly, like I said, like when I was younger at uni, like I had like ideas that I probably could have raised money on if I'd had like the people around me telling me to go and do it, but no one really was. I didn't know how to do it or what to do. It just seemed like not a thing that would be possible, even though like I was kind of smart. I definitely could have done it. I just didn't really have it in my mindset that it was like possible. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I've seen so many people go and do this. They're not actually any smarter than me. I guess I can do it, even though it just feels a bit weird still anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess that's a part of being the first in a startup to do that idea, right?
Yeah.
So thanks, Alex. Hope that answers your question. But you stumbled upon another really important point there about making a team, and how did that happen for Syncify? Like, did you and you're talking about Jack, right, as your co-founder? So how did that kind of come together? Did you two just, I guess, both seem to really like the idea, or did you go to Jack with the idea in mind and thought this is a great person to
Yeah,
execute?
so I've had a different business partner that I've done quite a few things with before. And so I was starting it with him, and he was going to be like the CTO co-founder. We were like 50-50. And then like Jack's like a friend I've had since I was 10. And I've always like liked him, and he's had like various problems, but I've always kind of been there for him and things. And he got like quite good at sales. And so I thought like he'd be good. And I know he always wanted to get into business, but he was never like an entrepreneur or sort of had that. But I kind of was like, you should probably stop having a job and come like start a business with me. And I've kind of been teasing him about that for like a while. And with the whole like making progress with Techstars side of thing, he sort of got interested enough. We still didn't get the idea for like 3 months, I swear. Like, so it took him a while to actually get on board with like what the hell we were actually doing. But the other business partner left, which is awkward because he had like this sex app which took off and nightmare. So it's just me and Jack who was doing sales, and I had nothing for him to sell, and it was a bit confusing, and he didn't even understand what he was selling, and so it was a bit of a strange situation. But because we were like friends, I kind of stuck with him. If I didn't know him and he'd been an intern, I probably would have fired him because he didn't really get much done. But I guess that's what friends are for, is to like help each other with their problems and stuff. And like now he's obviously really useful, and like I said, like I'm not so natural at leading and bringing lots of energy like all the time always, but he kind of does that, so actually pretty useful.
Having been on a Zoom call with him, I definitely attest to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's lots of fun. But yeah, so that we started, and I had like an assistant for my podcast who was helping on some things, so he helped a bit, and then like I got a few people sort of help out before we had money, like just doing the odd bits of stuff. And as soon as we got the funding through, it was like, okay, by the way, you should probably quit your job and come join us. And like they did, which was amazing. So we had like a few coders at the start of Techstars, and then since then we just had like this kind of weird gravity. So like one of the receptionists for the office building like quit his job, and then like without even checking, and then like asked if he could work for us for free for like a month to see what he was doing, and like he was actually really good, and we paid him from the start because if we didn't want him to be working for free. And then like another girl that we did like a user call with was just sort of really excited about what we're doing, and sort of chatted us for an hour and a half about like different ideas, and we're like, you could also work for us with all these ideas and do stuff. And so she joined, and then like I met another friend in the gym who I hadn't met in like 3 years, which bumped into him, and I was looking for coders and he was a coder, and managed to convince him to come join us. And so yeah, that's where the main people in the team have come from so far. And now we definitely don't have enough money to be employing any more people, which is a bit annoying. So trying to raise some more money before things go tits up, because that'd be kind of bad.
If we have any investors in the call, hint,
Yeah,
hint.
that's your time.
That's really interesting. So it seems like the team kind of got formed by osmosis then, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first CTO left, that was a problem, and then had general chaos for a while. Then we had like another CTO who like agreed, but he couldn't start for like a month and a half because he was finishing his thesis. But then when he finished it, like the thesis went so well that he got asked to like then turn it into a paper. So he literally joined us for a week and then had to leave because he had to go write his science papers, which went so well that he's now been offered a PhD. And you're like, oh Jesus. But somehow like survived all these problems, and then ended up with like the CTO that we now have, who was probably the best because he was already like, trying to build the same idea and has the exact same vision anyway. So often like things seem terrible that aren't as terrible as you think, and like it just provided the opportunity for the next thing, or like brilliant lessons and stuff. And like I interviewed the CTO of Graze like last year, and like I think they had like 2 major moments where they thought like the business was going to go under because like everything just went wrong, but actually it ended up being like a fundamental change to the business that actually made them so successful if they hadn't have gone through it. So I don't really get so stressed about things going wrong anymore, because it's like it's probably just moving us in the right direction or something. So it's nice to not be worried about things, which people often get kind of stressed about in startup. But I guess that's a handy skill.
Yeah, nice. So Ian, a committee member's asked in the chat, what are some of the lessons you've learned from failing?
Friendships are more important than taking things seriously, so don't worry too much about failing. It's nothing to worry about too much, and if you go home and live with your mum at the end of it, that's fine. So I wouldn't get like over caught up with things, but certainly how to like actually do things correctly is helpful. So having a good idea is in basically startups fail because like that the idea is probably not the idea that you're going to actually end up doing at the end of it anyway. So it's not so much the idea, as long as like it's a good problem area. So it's either because you fall out with your co-founders or because you run out of money. So basically anything you can do to stop those 2 things happening should mean that you won't fail. So getting to know your co-founder earlier before starting the business with them. So like I said, like if there are any hackathons going well and like there's people that you're kind of friends with, just like try working with them and doing things, or just like working on like a non-contractual committed basis. So all my startups, basically, we've just worked together for like 3 or 4 months before actually like doing like an official founders contract kind of thing. The only thing was different was like with my current co-founder Jack, because I knew him so well, and he didn't actually understand startup. He was like, he wanted a contract straight away, and I'm like, bro, we don't need that. But also, like, I don't really care. Like, I'll be able to like discuss with you whilst you're so shit or why you're so good afterwards to change what the contract is. So I wasn't so worried about this writing something that didn't mean anything to me, but like was useful for him. Otherwise, yeah, like I said with my first business, just being aware of like who you're going into business with and what they want from it, and if your alignments are different from the company, just like leave straight away. Because I hung around for like a year not really doing much and just being like a bit of a useless entity, and just to like kill things quickly. So like either just leave, or the same with like just fail fast if there is an idea that you're doing. So I mean, I've started so many different ideas in the last 5 years just to like work out what interests me. And so I'll start like I did like an adventure travel business for a while, which was really cool. Like I love adventure and traveling, but I didn't enjoy like dealing with people's crap, and having a bunch of people doing scary stuff was like, I like doing it by myself and having some friends with me, like organizing people's lives for them and having that stuff going wrong was like not so much fun. So it's nice to kind of not take things too seriously and turn it into like a proper huge business, just to sort of work out if you enjoy it, and then write out what the things are that you need to do to then scale it and see if that's what you want to subscribe to. Because of basically anyone can be successful as long as you're willing to like pay the price of whatever it is to make that thing a success. And basically test things, work out what the price will be to make it successful, and decide whether you want to pay that price. And so like with the travel things, like, okay, I don't want to spend all my time on social media, like trying to plug these events and trying to sell things to people. And it was just like a constant game of stuff like I just wasn't interested in. Whereas like what I'm doing now is like, okay, I do like building this type of business. I like working with the kind of people that I need to work with to do this. And yeah, talking to loads of investors, I'm learning lots of stuff that I'm interested in. So these are prices that I do want to pay. So yeah, I guess I learned a lot more around like who I am as a founder and what I want to spend my time doing was probably really useful. And like before you're, well, any age is fine, but like the whole mastery concept by Richard something is a great book, which talks about like between 20 and 30, just try lots of different things, kind of just get to know yourself and learn skills in the process. And then like by the time you're 30, you'll probably have a bunch of really cool, useful, unique skills, and you know yourself better to then go and like deliver on them. So I wouldn't stress out about like trying to be hugely successful straight away, and optimize more for learning and like useful experiences whilst you're young, because of it's kind of cool. Yeah, so those are some collection of lessons, I guess.
All right. No, that sounds like some great lessons you've learned from failing, I guess. And in terms of Syncify now, so you've come out of Techstars, and you mentioned that you've acquired, I guess, I don't think you mentioned it was called Brabble, but Syncify's acquired Brabble. That was the bit of technology you're talking about. Where do you see Syncify going next from the stage you're currently at?
So yeah, we really want to just nail down on the current area of like podcasts and audiobooks and make it like as social and useful and engaging to people as it can be, and just really grow that out. So like the current mission is to get to like 10,000 users who like are just really engaged and love it. At that point, you sort of you prove a point and you can sort of raise funding to like really scale at like a big level then. But yeah, once we've got people like learning from each other and listening to stuff together, that we would like to go into like all media and start having video on there, and then like text and things, so you can sort of really your whole content library you can be in sync with people on, and turn it into like a really like multi-faceted experience. So yeah, lots of cool things. And I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, like the whole, if you had like Neuralink and like sort of just being able to think the same things as other people and send your thoughts together, I sort of want to
Yeah.
be as close to that without having any invasive technology in your brain as possible. So anything that helps people feel more in sync with each other and like share the same thoughts is kind of within my remit of what to do with the business. I mean, we'll see. Maybe like next year, Spotify offers to buy us, and I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'm not expecting that I would feel that way, but trying to talk about yourself in the future, like you actually know what's going to happen, is kind of stupid. So I don't pretend to know too much about my future self.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it's still a company in its infancy, right? Like the app's not actually been launched yet, so it's still hard to say what you're going to be doing a year from now.
Yeah, 100%. It's a bit of a funny game talking to investors about what you're going to do and stuff when, you know, just a few ideas and like next week everything could change, let alone like in a year's time.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fun.
So in terms of like the app launch, how's that going? And do you have any sort of specific time frame of when you expect the app to be launched?
Yeah, so we should be launching in January. We've been doing like the beta, which has been going well, and like working through like a bunch of bugs and like the most important features ready for like the users that we want to use it with, starting stuff off. But yeah, like mid-January, I'm expecting to have like a more public launch, and we're kind of not sure if we'll do like a really big launch. We'll kind of like launch it, but still just get like a bit more scale of people on there, just to still like be iterating, because you just want to be like learning from users as much as possible and how they're engaging with things and just like iterating on improving it. And so we might do like a bigger product launch in like 3 months time, where we sort of try and get like a bunch of people on the app straight away and do stuff. But like initially it might just be like a bit smaller and trying to board like another 20 to 50 people each week kind of thing, just to learn from them. We'll see.
Definitely, that's really interesting. And do you think, so you're saying that you're still evolving, would you say even your business model is still evolving? So are you for certain going to do
Yeah,
like
just
a
by the
free
pitch
app?
deck, it's like, do we talk about audiobook reselling, or like maybe we're like OnlyFans but for podcast creators, or like until we've built the app and we're like giving people value just from using it, it's hard to really say what we'll be doing exactly in terms of making money, because we don't want to rely on advertising. That's one thing we know. We might have to use it a bit, just because if you are making money up front, like it just, the whole running a business makes it's a lot easier, rather than just trying to rely on like investors giving you money on stuff when there's no clear way to make money. But we do want to, yeah, definitely empower creators a bit more, and have audiobooks. So those are like the two things that we talk about the most, but there's lots of other innovation ideas that we have around making money. And like, you just sound like a child when you have like, yeah, we'll make money, there's like 10 different ways, and you kind of just need to talk about one in the pitch deck, but which one we even put in, we kind of change depending on how we're feeling or what the last investor told us. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for now, are you prioritizing? Because I guess you kind of have two pools of people that you want to attract to Syncify. You've got your creators, so you have content on the platform itself, and then you want users as well. So are you kind of just all out trying to get as many creators and users as you can, or is there one group you're trying to target for now?
Yeah, we've been more focused on users initially, just because it's like waitlist wise a bit easier to start off with, and we don't really want to, because creators are also super cool, and as soon as like creators are getting value from it, they can bring their audiences, so that's great. But we don't want the app to not deliver the social experience that we want and have creators like plugging it, because if like someone just listens to a podcast, like they listen by themselves, they hear the creator says, oh, come to the social app, and they go and join it, and then like they just go there by themselves and it's not social, it's kind of pointless because they can't really interact with anyone, and so it's not so useful. Whereas it makes more sense to like focus on users who we know we can bring with their friends at the same time to actually get the social experience first, and then once we've nailed that like experience and the onboarding experience, when someone like by themselves hears about the app and wants to download it, we can sort of make sure that we make that onboarding experience a way that they'll bring their friends with them, and that they'll then have the social experience that they need to actually then carry on using the app.
Yeah,
So
I guess.
that we kind of focus on users first, that we can onboard in the correct way. But yeah, we have been speaking with some cool podcasters. I don't know if you've heard of like Azim Azar, who does like Exponential View, but like the whole HBR network we've been talking to, or Cup and Nuzzle, who do like Jesse Ware's podcast and some of the other big like artists and stuff. We're talking with them, which is cool. So yeah, we are kind of working on the podcast side as well. We've had like 300 podcasters sign up, but hasn't been such a focus.
Yeah, because you're at quite an interesting boundary where you're not really specifically a content platform or a social media platform. You're right
Yeah,
in the middle of that, I guess.
yeah. Sorry.
It's all right. Okay, that's quite interesting anyway. But have you thought about maybe integrating with other platforms as well to get podcasts on Syncify that might not have been, I guess, specifically uploaded straight to Syncify?
Oh yeah, so I mean, podcast RSS feeds are all available freely. So we kind of any podcast that's like kind of slightly successful, we already have on the app. So it's just like podcasts that aren't so famous, we don't have on the app, and just people have to like send us their RSS feed. But we don't have any issues with that. There's no like private podcast sort of networks or anything. So there's nothing stopping us from having all content as such. Which is kind of why we chose podcasting, because there's no barriers to entry as such to start off with. Because there were other options we could go into, but like certainly like TV and stuff is just like it's a nightmare of who owns what and stuff. Whereas podcasts is just like if you have an app that can play podcasts, you can listen to any podcast on it.
That makes sense. And I guess, did you think about going into musical? I guess audiobooks are really similar as well. Do you think audiobooks would be a massive part of Syncify as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of the same time that people spend in like the area of your brain. For me, obviously you just pay for audiobooks, which is different, which obviously means that it's great for us because we actually then part of like people spending money on something. It's just a bit more faff like dealing with like how we're selling the audiobooks. Really, that's the only thing. So that's why podcasts are a bit easier to start straight away, but like I definitely think it's great, and also a really nice experience because you can join book clubs, but it's a bit of a faff. But like the experience of reading a book chapter by chapter with someone is like unreal, because you just never do that, and there's just so much more content in a book than you can ever discuss normally. So if you read a whole book and then you like talk to someone about it, there's not that much you can talk about. You can like, yeah, it was great, and maybe a few of the main ideas. But if you sort of go through each chapter, you can really sort of go through like, okay, actually what were like all the things that you spoke about that like were really interesting, and you can just go much deeper on like and get like all the value from the book that's there, which is super cool. And I'm quite excited.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of room for growth for Syncify. And I guess, yeah, when you're at such an early stage, it's really hard where you're going to expand into next.
Yeah, we'll see. But video, I definitely think like YouTube is a big one. Because I mean, Netflix Party has now changed to call themselves Telly Party, so they let you watch like Hulu and a few other things together. But it's still you have to like plan it. It's like you can only watch the same thing at the same time, and then you just have like a chat window on the side, which is it's nice, but it's not like that convenient as such. Whereas just being able to like be like in sync on the same things to be able to chat stuff, I feel is a bit nicer. So we'll see whether there's like room to innovate in that. Like maybe if it takes us a year or two to get there, like by then someone else is doing stuff. So who knows?
Yeah,
but it's a cool area.
that sounds really interesting for the future. So yeah, it sounds like that your platform is going to be really friendly, especially as compared to Netflix and the other sort of social media things that other platforms are trying to do. And actually, I was talking to Jack, and he said something interesting that Spotify is not gonna, it's not aiming to be a social media platform, and the whole interactive thing is not going to be built in Spotify at all, right?
Yeah, so they're doing a bit of like work around people in the same household connecting and stuff, but they like the head of innovation like on a podcast like last month was sort of stated like we're never going to be about like connecting people socially or and such, and like because I mean people keep on asking us like, oh, isn't it like a feature in Spotify, and like I mean yeah, Spotify could maybe just let you see a bit more of what your friends are listening to and stuff, but it's still like not the same as like listening together and being able to chat and like sending each other comments and ratings and all these things that they've never done and like just aren't going to do. It's like it's a whole UI change and like completely different experience. Like they're just like a content player. They're not a social platform. So yeah, we'll see what they go and do. I mean, obviously people can always change their minds just because they said that this year. But it would be like a massive change for them. It may make sense for them to like acquire people like us in the future, because they've acquired a company called Soundwave, who's one of our mentors, and they were just doing music playing, but in the same way as Syncify, like you listen in sync. But that was more like an acquihire to stop like other companies getting them. And certainly, if you think of the fact like Amazon's going into podcasting, Facebook is all about like being social as much as possible. Google have been going into podcasting. There's certainly people who would still be interested in the space. So it might make sense for Spotify to like stop others from making so much progress, but we'll see.
Okay, well, that's really interesting, Sam. And it sounds like the future is definitely bright, if not wide, in terms of what Syncify is going to achieve.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed the talk. I'll just remind everyone of our £15 raffle prize. If you sign up to syncify.fm, I've put the link in the chat with your uni email, you can enter that. And yeah, I hope everyone's really enjoyed the talk. If there's any final questions, put them through. But thank you, Jack, for coming today and talking to us.
My pleasure. And thanks everyone for joining. I know there's like lots of other things we could be doing, especially when it's just like a Zoom call, and we have plenty of those these days. So good on you for like optimizing for learning about entrepreneurial stuff and business. Hope you all start businesses. If you ever do, feel free to send me a question, sam@syncify.fm. Always happy to help. Also add me on LinkedIn if you want. I can put it in the chat, or you can send it out later or something. But yeah, always happy to help.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Sam. Best of luck to you and Syncify for the future. Once again, thanks to CSS for helping us put this talk together. I hope everyone has a great week.
Cool. Nice. Go team.
Thanks, everyone. See you all.